Good morning, students. How are you all? I hope all of you are fine and safe at your home. I, Anu, welcome you all to this online class of chemistry under Essential ICSC Chemistry for Class 8 by A. Mishra. Now we are going to begin with Lesson 2, Physical and Chemical Changes. Changes occur every moment around us. In fact, they are an integral part of nature. In this chapter, we will study about how changes are classified, and also we are going to study physical and chemical changes systematically. So let us begin. How changes are classified? They are categorized here in four categories. First, reversible and irreversible changes. Second, periodic and non-periodic changes. Third, desirable and undesirable changes. Fourth, physical and chemical changes. My dear children, you have studied about all these changes already in class 6 and 7. But again, we are going to revise all these changes once again. Now let us first begin with irreversible changes. A change is said to be reversible change when the opposite change can be brought about by reversing the conditions. I repeat, it is said to be a reversible change when the opposite change can be brought about by reversing the conditions. Change in state of matter is the most common example of the reversible change. I hope all of you already studied about matter in class 6 and 7. So what are the three states of matter? We have solid, liquid and gas. So this change in all these three states, it is the most common example of reversible change. How? We know that when we are going to heat a solid, it gets converted into liquid. That is also called as the melting of a solid. Again, when we are going to cool this liquid, it is going to be again converted into solid. So that is called as the freezing of the liquid. Again, this you have already studied. So solid can be converted into liquid on heating, and again liquid can be on cooling, liquid on cooling can be changed back into solid. So it's a reversible change. Liquid, it can be converted into gas on heating, and gas on cooling or condensing, it can be again converted into liquid. Okay, so again the change is reversible in nature. You can also think of all the other examples which are useful in our daily life and which forms a part of the reversible change. Like one more common example, it is that of turning on or off of a bulb. It's a it's a reversible change. Now let us move further. A change is said to be irreversible when the opposite change cannot be brought about by reversing the conditions. Okay. So if we reverse the conditions and if we are not able to get that original substance back again, then it is called as the irreversible change, as the name indicates. Irreversible, that means it cannot be changed again, or we cannot again go back to the same process. For example, curdling of milk. You might have seen that milk, it can be changed into the cottage cheese or paneer by boiling it with some lemon juice added to it. But again, this paneer cannot be again converted into milk. So it's an irreversible change. Next example is that of charring of sugar. Charring of sugar, you know that sugar, when heated, it swells to form a brown substance which finally gets charred. That is, it forms a black mass. But the charred mass on being cooled does not give back sugar again. So again, it's an irreversible change. So here as we have already now we have studied about reversible and irreversible change. Now let us move further with periodic and non-periodic changes. Periodic and non-periodic changes. Periodic change. Periodic changes are those changes which take place at the fixed interval of time. Example, to and fro motion of a pendulum represents a periodic change. Okay, so those changes that are occurring at the fixed, that is regular or fixed intervals of time, those are called as periodic changes. For example, I have already shared the picture of the pendulum here. We know that the pendulum, it takes fixed times to go from its mean and extreme position. The changes occur at the fixed interval of time. Another common example, it is of change in the phase of the moon. Changes in phases of moon, they occur at regular interval of time. Okay. After fixed duration only new moon or full moon occurs. So that is also an example of the periodic change. Let us come to the non-periodic changes. Non-periodic changes are those changes which do not take place at fixed intervals of time. Right. So they do not have any fixed duration of time for their occurrence. Okay. For example, here is melting of ice. Melting of ice, it does not have a fixed duration of time, whether it is going to occur after fixed interval only. It can occur any time, for any duration, for any longer period of time or shorter period of time. So these are the non-periodic changes. Rusting of iron, it's again a non-periodic change, or charring of sugar is again a non-periodic change. So all those changes which are not occurring at the fixed interval of time, they lead to the formation of non-periodic changes. Now let us move ahead to the desirable and undesirable changes. As the name indicates, desirable, something that we desire, something that we like. The changes that are useful to us, they are called as desirable changes. Like we have the digestion of food, right? Everyone wants that we should be healthy, right? For that, the digestion of food is a important process. So that's a desirable change. Ripening of fruit, we want that the fruit should grow, they should ripe, and they should reach us, they should come to us so that we can eat and remain healthy. So again, it's a desirable change. So all these growth of living beings, so all these are desirable changes. While undesirable, do we want that earthquake should occur? Do we want this coronavirus to occur? No, we don't want. So it's an undesirable change. That is basically not liked by us. Okay, something we do not like. That's a undesirable change that can cause damage to us. Okay, rusting of iron. Again, it's a undesirable change. Okay, got it? So now let us move to the next. Now let us come to physical changes. A change in which no new substances are formed and which can be reversed by reversing the condition is called a physical change. So remember, there are two main important points in which no new substances are formed and the change can be reversed. For example, the glowing of the heater or a bulb. An electric heater or a bulb glows when it is switched on, but the glow vanishes as it is switched off. So the change is reversible. Also, no new substance is formed, therefore, the glowing of heater or bulb is a physical change. Second, thermal expansion of a substance. On being heated, a substance expands, but on being cooled, it contracts. Also, no new substances are formed, so the change is a physical change. You might have observed that an inflated balloon often bursts on its own at a birthday party. Why? Because the air inside the balloon expands when the latter remains near a hot bulb for a while. So it's a physical change. Third, changes in state of matter. Change in state of matter is also a physical change. We have already studied that the melting of ice is reversed by the freezing of water. The vaporization of water is reversed by condensation of water vapor. and at the same time the substance is in three state is the same, that is water itself. Therefore the change is a physical change. Sublimation. You have already studied what is sublimation. When a solid directly vaporizes without going into the liquid state, it is called as sublimation. In sublimation, a solid like ammonium chloride, naphthalene, camphor, or iodine directly form vapors without melting. And when cooled, the vapors are directly converted into the solid. Thus, the change is a physical change. It is reversible and no new substance is formed. The dissolving of a substance in a liquid is again a physical change. We know that a solid like sugar, salt, or glucose dissolves in water. Now, here this term solute plus solvent is equal to solution. You have already studied the substance that dissolves is called a solute, and the liquid in which the substance dissolves is called a solvent. Solute plus solvent together form a solution. Hence, as the solute can be obtained back from the solution by evaporating the solvent, the solution is a physical change, or the dissolving of a substance in a liquid is a physical change. I hope it is clear to you. Now, moving on to the next slide, that is chemical changes, a change in which new substances are formed and which cannot be reversed by reversing the condition is called the chemical change. So the two main points are in a chemical chain, new substances are formed and it cannot be reversed. Very common example it is that of burning. We know that burning is one of the most common example of a chemical change. For example, when kindled, hydrogen burns in air to form a new substance, water. On being cooled, water does not give back hydrogen. So the change is irreversible. Thus, the burning of hydrogen is a chemical change. Why? Because hydrogen on burning it gives water. But again, if we are going to cool water, we are not going to get back hydrogen again. So it's a chemical change. The cooking of food. The taste of vegetables and pulses changes on being cooked because new substances are formed in the process. Also, we cannot obtain green vegetables from a vegetable curry or grains from cooked pulses. So, the cooking of food is a chemical change. Third, the curdling of milk. Once the milk is curdled, so a new substance that is cottage paneer is formed and milk cannot be obtained back from the curd. So the change is irreversible. Thus a curdling of milk is a chemical change. Next, digestion. Food on being digested inside our body is changed into several different things, some of which are taken up and some are expelled by the body. The change cannot be reversed either. Thus, digestion is a chemical change. Rusting. Iron rusts in moist air, forming a reddish brown solid called as rust. The rust formed cannot be changed back to iron by reversing the condition. So the change is irreversible, thus rusting is a chemical change. Respiration. In respiration, the glucose that is formed by a living being combines with the oxygen of the air, forming the new substance CO2 and water. Energy is also released in the process and the change is irreversible. So, respiration is a chemical process. Photosynthesis. Green plants they prepare their food from CO2 and water in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll. New substances, glucose and oxygen are formed and the change is irreversible. So it's a chemical change. Fermentation. Fermentation is a process that is employed for preparing the alcohol from the fruits containing sugar. In the presence of enzymes, a sugar solution changes into alcohol, liberating CO2. As a result, a froth is formed and the liquid appears as if it was boiling. The process is known as fermentation. It is an irreversible process in which new substances are formed, and therefore it is a chemical change. The charring of sugar. Sugar, when heated, the water gets loosened and vaporized, and the black residue of carbon is left behind. The change is irreversible and therefore it is also a chemical change. So I hope the difference between you might have understood what is physical change and what is chemical change. Now let us move to the next topic, that is conservation of mass in a chemical change. The mass of the individual substance undergoing a chemical change is altered, but the total mass of the reactant is same as that of the product. You have already studied law of conservation of mass, which was given by Lavoisier in lesson 1, which said that matter can neither be created nor be destroyed. It can be converted into one form or the another form, but the total mass of the substance before and after the change remains the same. So here also in a chemical change, whichever substance is undergoing a chemical change, the individual mass of the substance can get changed, but the total mass that is formed, the total mass of the reactant would be equal to the total mass of the product. For example, when carbon is burnt in air, the mass of the carbon is reduced and finally the carbon vanishes. All the carbon gets converted to carbon dioxide, but the mass of carbon plus the mass of oxygen taken up from the air is same as that of the CO2 that is formed. We know that carbon, it reacts with oxygen to form carbon dioxide. So what are the reactants here? Carbon and oxygen. And what is the product? Carbon dioxide. So the mass of carbon and oxygen combined together, although their individual mass may vary, carbon may get reduced, but when the total mass of the both the reactant would be same as the total mass of the product. So that states the conservation of mass, that is the mass remains constant or same as in both the cases, whether we talk of reactants or we talk of the product. Moving on to the next slide, there is a comparison between physical and chemical changes. Physical change. A physical change is temporary in nature. Chemical change, it is permanent in nature. Temporary means it remains for a short span of time and it can again change to the original conditions. Chemical change, once it has occurred, it cannot be reversed. That means it is permanent in nature. A physical change is reversible, chemical change is irreversible. Physical change. No new substance are formed after a physical change. Chemical change. New substances are formed after a chemical change. Physical changes. After physical change, the mass of the substances remains unaltered. Okay. So the individual mass of the substance also remains same in case of physical change. While we talk of chemical change, the mass of the individual substance undergoing a chemical change is altered. Okay, so the mass of the chemical substance that is undergoing a chemical change is altered. Only the individual mass. However, the total mass of the reactants and products remains the same. Now, children, these are few of the questions you have to do at the home based on the content I have taught to you. First question is, what are reversible changes? Which of the two, the vaporization of water and the burning of paper, is a reversible change? So out of the two, you have to tell which is a reversible change. What are irreversible changes? Which of the two, that is the melting of ice or the growth of plant, is an irreversible change? Define a periodic change. Is rusting a periodic change? Define a non-periodic change. Is swinging of a pendulum a non-periodic change? Now classify into desirable and undesirable changes. The spoiling of food, the digestion of food, the rotting of an egg, the decay of a dead animal into the open air. Next slide. Define a physical change. Is rusting a physical change? Define a chemical change. Is the heating of an electric iron a chemical change? Classify the following as physical and chemical changes. First, the melting of ice, respiration, the cooking of food, fermentation, the evaporation of liquid, sublimation of iodine, the dissolving of a solid, the burning of coal, the glowing of a bulb, the freezing of water, the curdling of milk, photosynthesis in green plants, the condensation of water vapor, the digestion of food. Last slide. State the difference between physical and chemical changes. Give an example to show the mass of the individual substances undergoing a chemical change is altered. So all of you have to do this work at home and complete till we meet next. Thank you.